Hello, everybody. Anthony from Traders Ultimate Edge here. Let's go ahead and look at the market. Today, we definitely had a pretty big rebound from that low down on Friday. Kind of what we were all expecting. That move back up without further Omicron news. Now, I've been looking through the news. There, of course, is cases being found in other places. There's cases found in Canada. And I would imagine that very shortly it will be announced that there are some in the United States. That is what it is. There's also news out today from Pfizer. The Pfizer CEO reiterating that they've already started work on a different vaccine, if necessary, one that takes into account Omicron's genetic changes. They've already sequenced the genome and everything for it, and they can have that new vaccine out within 100 days if necessary. So it looks like the vaccine angles will be fine. And haven't heard anything on their treatment pills from Merck and PFE yet. But that kind of efficacy data will take some time to come out. So again, what we're really looking for here is, well, what I'd really like to see is current treatments have good efficacy, which it's kind of looking like that's going to be the case. As this point, they've detected Omicron more than 2 weeks ago, and there have been no deaths reported from it. I think that's right. It's been more than 2 weeks in South Africa since they detected this mutation. And I read today that the WHO has not had any reported deaths from the variant. And now those, go and do your own research on those. That's what I was reading today. That could have already changed by the time I'm doing this video. But nonetheless, that's what I'm looking at. So it doesn't sound to me, and again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. It doesn't sound to me like it's going to be more severe, maybe perhaps more transmissible, but not more severe than the non-Omicron variants. And hopefully, we do have good efficacy from the vaccines and the treatments. And if that's the case, and we see more news in that direction, and the fear machine isn't getting stoked, I think the market goes every bit back to all-time highs. That's where I think it goes, especially if it gets on the back of FDA approval of those treatments, which is coming pretty soon. FDA approval of Merck and Pfizer. So as far as the chart today, you can see we just kind of chopped from the Sunday bell open, and there's actually a lot of volume Sunday. I was here trading. I traded oil on Sunday. There was quite a bit of volume that came in on the open, or excuse me, it was right here, was the open on Sunday. But nonetheless, we kind of chopped around a little bit of a range today, and then just shot up into the stratosphere and bounced off a trend line. Sat here and then kind of had that predictable sell-off at the end of the day. It was announced there was a market on sell imbalance of, I think, 3 billion or something. So a lot of people probably sold off on that. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's already popping back up here in after hours. It's totally normal. There was quite a bit of volume today, though. I was watching up in these areas on level 2 in time and sales during the day. There was so much back and forth tug of war up here. It was really kind of astounding to me today. So we have a lot of buyers. We have a lot of buyers here in the market, and a lot of people on the same wavelength as us. That I think when I say a lot of people, I don't mean retail. I think funds. I think big money is on this wavelength, and I think other savvy traders are on this wavelength. That as long as there's no further bad news, the market's going to go back up. Whereas you have a lot of retail they sort of panicked, right? I mean, look at all the news articles, right? And I think that's why we had this initial sell-off right here at the beginning of the day. Markets sold off right here, chopped, sold off again, and I think a lot of this was retail dumping their positions. If you don't know, difference between retail and everybody else is retail is essentially your average investor or your average trader, right? And the average trader loses money. So your average investor that works a 9-to-5 job, comes home, looks at the news, and reacts. That's retail. The rest of us are, it's either big money, right, hedge funds, or those of us that are active full-time day traders. Okay, so that's what I mean when I say retail, and I think they sold off here. I think that's what this was, and then this was just funds and active traders just buying it back up. It's like, okay, well, it's at a low. Let's just go ahead and get long. I am long in SPY. I think it's fine to be. On all of my positions, my options positions are all long dated. I'm out into February on SPY, and shares on SVIXY. I'm holding shares. If you don't know, SVIXY is essentially the opposite of the VIX. When the VIX goes up, the SVIXY goes down, and it gives you a buying opportunity. This is the exact setup that we want. This is the exact setup. Okay, so look at this big red candle. Little green one right next to it. Look, big red, little green one. Big red, little green one. Big red, little green one. And then the next day, pop, pop. Next day, pop. And then it goes up. So this should pop into this gap tomorrow. So great setup here on SVIXY. We are in that one. Closed our Amazon today for a win, and we went ahead and got into Google. That one's already profitable. So we're doing pretty well here. I think whatever trades you're looking at, my favorites here are still going to be long in oil. Here's oil today. Oil pulled back on this, and I think this had something to do. I found an article about Russia talking about how they didn't want to pull back production along with OPEC. And I think this is on worries that OPEC isn't going to pause production increases. I think that's what this was on the back of. I am not 100% sure. Whatever it is, keep in mind OPEC always argues and bickers among themselves. Like that's what OPEC does. That's literally I think that's OPEC's entire mandate is just to argue between themselves and then do whatever makes them the most money. I genuinely believe that's what they do. So this will get resolved. I like long in oil. I'm long on USO calls. You can also do UCO. Actually, I have both. I have a few in UCO, and then I've got 20 calls in USO. So that's where most of my position is. And of course, Activision. We've been in Activision for a while. We are showing a descending wedge here in Activision. And we moved back up to the top of it today, a little bounce off. So this wedge, if you don't know, a descending wedge is a reversal pattern, so this should break to the upside. Typically a wedge will fire with a false breakout. So it'll false break to the downside, and then a bunch of buyers will come in and it'll shoot to the upside. That's usually what happens with a wedge. Not always, but quite often. So that's where I am on ATV. Still holding it. If we break this to the downside, I'll look at stopping out, but I'm still in that one. Look at the overall picture here today. Treasuries fell quite a bit after the news about coronavirus, and that's because investors wanted the safe haven, quote unquote, of 1.5% Treasuries rather than being in the market. That popped back up, but where it's sitting is fine. It's fine for everybody but financials. Financials were fairly flat, coming up 0.12% today, but they're fairly flat. Look at XLK. Oh no, I'm sorry, that was absolute change. Financials came up 0.3%. Tech came up 2.5 today, and that's kind of reflected in the whole market. You see growth came up by 1.8% today. Value came up by only 0.27. So everybody was buying growth. Growth names today that got sold off yesterday, or excuse me, got sold off on Friday. So that's fine. Little sector rotation, and we did not get this. We did not get any sort of a bounce back up, so that's good. We don't want treasuries to be super high because treasuries will, the higher that interest rate goes, the more it competes with the stock market, and so therefore lower treasury rates are usually a little bit better for the stock market, and they're not as good for financials. So if you're heavily invested in financials, that does move that price around a bit because banks key their loan rates off of the 10-year treasury yield typically. So if it goes down, they charge less for their loans, and that's not good for profits. So there's a little bit about that. Overall, this is what I wanted to see, was a close up here in the upper half of today's range. We got it. It looks pretty good. Now, I think overnight, get this level on your chart, 46, 46.50-ish, 46.49 right here. This level, I think, is going to come into play. It's also 46.40. That's another level I believe is going to come into play on the ES. So have them on your charts going into tomorrow, as well as all your normal fibs and this trend line. This trend line and this fib right here, it obviously caught both of them. And that trend line is from a ways back. You're going to want this one. It's from the low on 10 November. So you'll want to make sure to get that trend line on your charts as well. It does seem to be in play. We've had multiple hits against it and just hit it again today. So you'll want to have that. I am looking for, now, barring further news about Omicron, okay? Barring further fear machine news, I do believe we get another move up in the market tomorrow. On the back of this, because tonight you're going to have retail going home and they're like, oh man, the market's going back up again. Maybe I should buy back in, and they'll buy back in. Okay. Don't be surprised to see it push up and find one of these areas of resistance and sell off of it pretty hard before it continues to move. And I think there's a lot of people that are long right now, myself included, that are looking for a little swing trade. Again, I am long, and I'm one of these people that's holding SPY calls just to dump them when we get to an area of resistance, okay? I do have some shorter dated ones that I'm swinging. So don't be surprised to see that tomorrow. There's going to be a lot of profit taking. And that's what happened right here at the end of the day. It was a lot of profit taking. So, yeah, there you go. That's my thoughts for tomorrow. Barring further news, I think we go up a bit tomorrow. We may even get a little gap up. SFX will be looking beautiful. VIX will be looking beautiful. Pulling back in. So that's all I got for you. Hey, I hope you all are successful, and I hope you all have a great evening. Thank you for listening.